I'm going to use a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, use a block or a blanket rolled up tight or something like that that gives you a little bit of height. There's going to be a couple of spots where we'll use that today. We're going to start off today with legs up the wall. So just find a spot, whether that's just your couch or whether that is your legs on the door or the legs all the way up onto a wall. Whatever variation you have today, start to swing your legs directly upright. And we're going to be here for the first few minutes. So we're getting set up here prior to our connecting with our intention for today. That'll give us a chance to be here for a bit longer, to give our legs lots and lots of time here. This pose is not only beneficial for opening up the hamstrings in such a gentle way, also the feet. We're getting to drain some blood out of the feet. So maybe you've been doing a lot of walking, a lot of working, just a lot of movement, and maybe your feet feel like they're a little bit swollen. To be honest, this is the best possible pose we could give our feet if that's the case. And so just letting them rest here. We're getting that relaxation through the blood pressure. And really starting to connect with our intention for today. One of the big things that my method behind madness for choosing this pose is that the lymph gets a chance to drain out of our legs by doing this. The lymph, so the lymphatic system is a system that helps to kind of purify and cleanse the body. It helps to move gunk and toxins out to keep us feeling healthy and vibrant. And so that's our intention today, is the idea of doing whatever we can to boost our immune system through the various movements. And so this is the first one, mainly to get that lymph to start draining out. The lymphatic system, it only works via one of two ways. The first way is with the contraction of our muscles. That helps to kind of squeeze the lymph through that lymphatic tissue. The other way is with gravity. And so that's one of the reasons why our feet might start to get swollen if we walk a lot. Part of it would be a blood pressure thing, but the other part would be the lymph to see, is the lymph able to actually drain, or is it just getting stuck in the feet? And so there's a lot of areas with a bunch of lymph nodes. So behind the knees is one of those big ones. So if you want to reach up kind of behind your knees and give it a couple of gentle rubs to just help those lymph nodes out, that'd be a beautiful thing to do. And then allow yourself to simply rest. We're here just a bit longer with the legs simply floating like this. After all you've done today so far, notice how this feels in your body. How are the legs responding to this? How is the back enjoying this pose? Always know if the hips are starting to lift off a little bit, I would scoot my way backwards so that I can have a flat spine all the way from the crown of my head, the backside of the head touching into the ground, and then the shoulders, the rib cage, even the low back and the hips are all releasing down to the ground. And feel how supportive and comforting it is to just sit tall like that. We'll take a moment to allow the legs to start to go wider. Depending on the space that you're in, you may not have much space, so going just, a foot or two wider to each side is perfectly fine. If you can go as wide as the legs are capable of, try to make sure that more or less the legs have dropped down to an equal plane. If we're lopsided, that has an impact on our sacrum. So sacrum gently staying level. Feel how in opening up the hips, it's almost like we're continuing to encourage the lymph to come all the way down the legs and toward the hip area. We're here in this spot just a little bit longer. It might feel nice to bring the arms to float upward. Just to imagine some of that lymph that might be stuck in the arms getting a chance to just drain back out as well. Then bringing the hands to the back sides of the knees. Allow the feet to slide together like a cobbler's pose. You get to choose how high up or how close in the pelvis the heels are toward the hips and the pelvis area. Once you've got the feet set in a spot that feels good for you, you can either push the knees open or grab onto your elbows and allow the arms to just float right up above the head. Enjoy a wonderful inhale passing into the body. And with the exhale, we're going to begin to head into a nice fetal position to one side. So gradually give the knees permission to stack. Kind of free out the shoulders so that you're nice and comfortable just laying here off to the one side. Two or three more breaths. Just notice the sensation of blood traveling back to the legs. That's now oxygen-rich blood. So it's so healthy for revitalizing the legs. Then let's begin to press our way up. We're actually going to go into a dangling position here. And so this could look like various options depending on what you have around you. So for instance, if we're close to a sofa, just let yourself rest the arms onto the sofa, just kind of dangling the legs as we rest our way down. If you've got a tall bolster, you could do the same thing, just kind of resting your forehead down. If you've got a block, you can rest your hands onto a block. Even if you just have a wall, you could rest your hips up against the wall and then just kind of dangle your way down, just resting. So that way there's not too much effort required. But what we're doing here is, because we've allowed a lot of that lymph to get now toward the hips, we're now allowing that lymph to continue to circulate around the torso by just dangling here rather than letting it return right back down the legs. Now it's continuing to travel up the body. This torso area is where it's able to really get processed. So whatever type of dangle you've got going on, just keep the breath flowing. Know that you don't have to be so rigid, so you absolutely could have bent knees. You could have movement or stillness. Just kind of listen to the body. What would be the kindest and best thing we could possibly do for the legs right here? Simply resting here for 3 more deep breath cycles. Then we'll make our way ever so slowly down onto the mat, all the way down to sitting on our glutes. Take your time, no rush at all. Here we're going to head into a nice restorative twist. So set up your bolster or block or a blanket roll. You're going to set it off to that left side of your body. I like to set it up long ways. So it's starting up close to that left hip and then extending long outward away from it off to that side. Keep this left leg as it is. And then the right leg is going to flip around. So the inside of the knee is down. It's connecting close to that left foot. Once you've got the legs set up like this, try to twist your torso toward that bolster or whatever prop you have and plant one hand on either side of that. Some days you don't even have to lower down, just twisting to that direction could be plenty for your hips or your spine. So that's beautiful. If you'd like to continue to lower down onto elbows and then widening elbows, you can rest onto whatever prop that you have available. Your head gets to choose either direction, so you could gaze just in a comfortable forward arrangement, or you could flip the head around. That would be more of a stretch for the cervical spine. So it's up to you to determine which is better for your spine, and if your neck has had any injuries, it's up to you to back off a little bit, if that's what the body is asking for here. We're thinking about boosting our immune system. I love to incorporate twists, not only because I just imagine in my head wringing some of the toxins out of my body, so my body feels healthy, lots of circulation going on, but also I love twists because it pulls into some of the muscle groups and some of the tissues that haven't had mobility perhaps all day long. Maybe we've been in the forward sitting or standing arrangement all day. And this twisting is such a gentle way to open up some of those muscles and some of the deeper tissues as well. So any of the unique spots that you haven't felt the rest of the day, begin to try to send breath to that area. Aiming for our last 3 breaths or so. Then finding the hands on the ground, gently press your spine to support your way up to a seated place. Untwist that right ankle, coming to just a normal seated place. And then with hands on the knees, take a motion like cat-cow. Gently rock the spine to round backwards. And then eventually straighten up and continue to arch the heart forward. So this is not fast at all. In restorative, we take our dear sweet time, but eventually maybe one more cycle back and to the arch. Beautiful. And from here, we'll begin to switch sides. So the bolster or your prop switches directions. This time it's the right leg that stays in this normal arrangement, and it's the left leg that flips so that the inside of the knee is down with that knee close to the right arch of the foot. Once we're there, plant a hand on either side of the bolster. Again, just staying up tall could be your option. Otherwise, perhaps you continue to find a way to gently lower down. Listen for what the cervical spine wants to do here. I usually mimic what I did on the first side, but if your body intuitively knows it needs something else, that's okay. And start to let the breath take over. Notice if you're checking in and out or if you're staying present. Obviously, the goal is presence. Not just presence during a yoga class, but more presence through our life. Paying attention to our goals, what we hope to get out of a situation, and also paying attention to the people around us and whatever needs they have at a given moment in time. Heading into those long, slow breaths. We're almost finished with this pose. See if you can continue to connect inward 2 more cycles. Same thing as before, gentle pressing of our way up. And then we're going to take our bolster behind us to help us take a restorative version of fish pose. So you'll have to play with this to get the exact arrangement that you need. Some people have neck troubles where the neck cannot rock back comfortably. So if that's the case, make sure that your bolster or your prop supports your neck. Otherwise, we're just going to have the bolster long ways, so about the way that makes it about as fat as the mat, that nice, kind of short direction. We're going to have that pretty much just under the shoulder area. So it's coming up. My shoulder is right about flush with the top of the bolster, and then the bottom of the bolster is right by where my rib cage ends. And then I allow my head to just rock backwards. Crown of the head maybe touching the ground. If you've got a if you've got a block, you'll just place that block in a way that's not too uncomfortable, right under the shoulders. Or a blanket, place it right along the middle of the spine. Whatever you have, let it work for you. And bring the arms into a place that feels natural, perhaps just open, spread wide, perhaps reaching up overhead. You've got lots of variations. But feel how those abdominal muscles and the back muscles are getting a chance to stretch open. Perhaps we've been, kind of hunching forward all day. Or perhaps we've been doing some lifting and the back just wants to have a chance to stretch open. So once again, try to breathe space into the spaces that feel the tightest. Take our last breath in here. And if your head is rocking back, perhaps your hands support the neck as your head gently lifts up. We're going to rise up to the point where the bolster can now be slid under our hips. And then we're relaxing the rest of our body up and over behind the bolster to that direction. So essentially this is like a supported bridge pose. Again, if you're using the block or the blanket, just place that right under your hips, under that sacral area. And feel already how open the shoulders are becoming. This pose is so supportive of the thyroid. Imagine extra rich, oxygen-rich blood traveling to the head, helping the upper chakras. So the exact arrangement of this pose is going to be dependent on what your body needs. This in itself is extremely restorative, extremely healthy, and helpful to all the chakras. If your body would like to play with walking the legs either partially out long or all the way out until the heels are what we're resting on, that can be a beautiful arrangement. This is a different kind of a bow pose than the back bend that we took a moment ago. My favorite thing about this variation is psoas stretch, the front of the hips, getting a chance to kind of pop forward and up into a very nice stretch, a very nice opening, elongation that's able to happen. Feel how breathing into the belly actually is supportive of the stretching. The belly becoming more full pulls the muscles just a little bit longer. And then the exhale is a release. So it's almost like we're massaging into those areas. Checking in with the body again, see how it's receiving this pose. Is there a way that we can relax ever deeper into this placement? And 3 more breaths here. As you finish that 3rd breath, the feet begin to slide in until they're planted. The next variation that we're going to play with will depend on what's most comfortable for that sacral area. If you have something that's very comfortable, very restful, like a bolster underneath your hips, you're absolutely welcome just to stay right here with the hips lifted as we begin to take either happy baby pose, grabbing onto the feet, or just letting the legs float upward, kind of like a different supported variation of legs up the wall. Now, if you start to head to those positions and the prop that you have today doesn't seem to be working out quite as well with your hips lifted, just gently rest your feet back down and then remove it. You can do either of these poses back from the hips on the floor as well. The hips elevated just adds a whole different element with a little bit of rounding happening to that low back. It's so gentle for the stretch that can happen for some of those back muscles. And so again, with or without, it's okay. I give you permission depending on what we have tonight. But begin to settle either toward happy baby or legs up, or even melting a little bit closer to plow pose. Perhaps the legs come up and your legs just start coming closer and closer to the face. This would be a great variation if you're working on hamstrings today. Letting the legs melt almost like we're heading toward plow pose, but not necessarily any requirement to get there. The hands can support the weight of the legs so that they stay in that perfect spot. And so whichever variation we've got today, see how deep and even the breath can be. Inhales about equal to exhales. Whichever variation you have, I invite you, if it feels natural, to use your hands to help massage that area. So if you're in the happy baby, maybe your thumbs and your fingers are massaging through that bottom side of the foot, helping to make the feet feel much better. Perhaps if you're taking that plow, the hands one at a time slides up and down the side of the leg that's facing to you, feeling that wonderful kind of compression. It's an invitation for blood to just continue to flow by that gentle stroking. If the legs are more up and down, maybe you're working on the front and the back sides of the thighs. It's a gentle massage. Feel how nice it is for our nerves to get some motion flowing through them. Our nerves are kind of made to ignore stimulus that they feel all the time, which is why our clothes, we don't really feel them. You don't notice necessarily that you're wearing clothes. It's just kind of, you just know that you have clothes and it's just there, but you don't exactly feel clothes 24/7. But having the nerves stimulated like this is such a refreshing way to be here in this pose. And the more relaxed we can get our body, the more we're supporting our immune system just by calming our blood pressure and making our heart rate variability come to a more natural, increased, beautiful spot. So whatever variation we're playing with, or even playing with all three, kind of going back and forth between the different spots, let's give ourselves another 3 or 4 cycles, just enjoying this chance to get to be here, alive with our bodies. Like with every exhale, we're letting go of our stress. We don't need it anymore. It was helpful while we had it, perhaps. Perhaps it helps us to keep us on task. But we don't need it anymore, so we let it right out and notice almost like this intuitive sense that our body knows the immune system can take care of everything going on right now because we're so happy, we're so relaxed. It knows what to do. It's got you. So one last good inhale. And exhale. And eventually work your feet back down to the ground. There's no rush. Take all the time that you need. And we're going to make our way eventually up toward a seated place, but there's no rush here. So take your time. Sometimes when the feet touch down, the low back needs a few moments to start feeling a little bit more connected to the body, a little bit more alive. Maybe you're rubbing your hands on that low back just to stimulate it like we just did with our legs. Maybe we're doing clockwise circles on the belly to help any sort of GI things that are going on right now, or just support the digestion in general. Good. And as we feel pretty relaxed here, you may want to roll over to a fetal position and then press your way up. You may walk up to your elbows and kind of walk your body up toward a seated place. So exactly how you get there is up to you. But once we're on a nice seated place, we're going to sit side saddle. So we've got the feet, both of them tucked to that right side. And our knees are bent out to in front of us. So our weight is pretty much on that left hip. From here, what we're going to do is take our prop under that left armpit, and this is going to help to stimulate those lymph nodes right under that armpit. So if it's a bolster, maybe you're tilting it upward and then resting it directly into that area. If you're on a block, you can play with the low height or the taller height. It tends to be, for me, that the taller height will be a little bit less intense than going lower, so you can play with that. A bolster or a blanket, whatever you have, just give it permission to stay up here. Perhaps if that elbow is able to be on the ground, maybe your fingertips can help support the head so the head's comfy. Or just letting gravity push into those lymphatic nodes, kind of stimulating them. I imagine sometimes the lymph nodes, they kind of get clogged and they're not quite so happy pushing the stuff along. So if that were to be the case at all today, imagine that your weight pushing into those nodes is helping to make sure those areas are nice and clean, very cleansed. And in that way, with flow, good open things are happening for our body. Let's see if we can maintain 3 more breaths here. Easeful rising up after the 3. Once we've made our way up, sooner or later, you'll switch your prop over to the second side, taking it under that armpit area. Maybe the head's able to be supported. Just allow gravity to push into it. Obviously, depending on the prop you have, this might be kind of intense. So breathe into it, and if you need to back out of it sooner because your prop is a little bit harder, that's absolutely fine. I give you permission. Otherwise, just keep on resting into gravity. If there's any muscles that you kind of notice are pushing away from gravity, you're kind of trying to hold yourself up, see if there's a way to relax every single one of those muscle groups. And 3 more breaths here. Gentle rising up whenever you finish your third. And when we get there, we're going to open up our legs to a wide shape. You can use your prop to sit on if your spine has a tendency to round backwards. Otherwise, your knees could be bent or straight, depending on what allows that hip arrangement to start off tall. If you're not using the prop, you can also bring it in front of you. We'll start off with it in front of that right leg. Allowing the right elbow to rest down, maybe the head already supported in the right hand. After we've opened up those armpit areas, now we're going to stretch through that armpit and the side ribs and the shoulder even more. So we'll start off with the left arm reaching up to the sky. If you can continue to tilt that left arm over toward the right toes, let yourself continue to reach to that direction. We're not going to stay here for too long. I know that can be really hard to hold it, but at least allow a couple of good breaths of envisioning those lymph nodes, helping to kind of squeeze out any last little stuck things. Another good inhale. And then exhale that left hand, bend at the elbow, and then send the hand to the low back. And let that shoulder have a much more restful pose as we continue to lean to the side for just a few more breaths. Good. Unwinding the arm, press into the bolster or the floor to help support your spine as it gently rises up. From there, we can switch the prop if you used it in front. This one would be left elbow down. Maybe the head's already in that left hand. Right arm reaches up to the sky. Maybe that's enough. Or perhaps continue to lean that right arm to the left. Another good breath in and out. Then lift up the arm, bending at the elbow. The hand is to the low back. Let the shoulder rest in that arrangement for a little bit longer. Take another breath in. Relaxed exhale. Unwind the arm, pressing into the ground or the prop to rise. Once we're here, slide the feet again toward a nice cobbler's pose. Again, this can be farther or closer to you, depending on what your hips and your spine need. You may want your prop in front of you, so that as you begin relaxing forward, this can be a very easeful and relaxing way to simply release. So here, take one last good inhale. Exhale that same slow return journey upward. Some of us may be finished with the prop. Some of us may want it for one last little twist that we're going to take in a little while. So don't push it too far off in case you might want it. But as we release our legs from that shape, let them plant wide out in front of you to enjoy just a couple of windshield wipers. Knees tilting all the way to the left, and then all the way over to the right. Feel how nice it is to enjoy that femur rotating around in its socket. Pretty much the full range of motion it has to these directions. One more cycle to each. Good. And then let's make our way down onto our backs. We've got one last pose to carry us onward, and this is going to be a twist. You have 3 options for the twist, so perhaps listen to all 3 and then choose the variation you'd like. No matter which you choose, it's going to be starting off with the knees aiming to the left side. So option 1, the easiest, just let both knees fall over into a twist to the left. Option 2, just the right knee heads over to the left. Option 3, the right knee is crossing over that left knee and then both knees twist over. So you've got any of these variations, 1, 2, or 3 that feels good, both knees, one knee, or crossed knees. And if right now the twist feels pretty intense, perhaps grab your prop, and this is where you can place it under those knees. So that way you're not pushing your spine too much. It's enough to receive benefits, to allow muscles and fascia and some of the deep tissues to open, but nothing too intensive. Imagine that energy of the twist that we mentioned earlier, energy of ringing, energy of elongating and stretching, opening up some deeply resting areas, and getting overall circulation going on in the body. The better circulation we have, the more that lymphatic system tends to clear out, the better we can get rid of the things that might harm our body if they were to stay in the body. Helping us to feel better, getting rid of viruses, getting rid of bacteria, getting rid of heavy metals, and getting rid of everything else, all other toxins that do not serve us. Imagine in your mind, you're already saying, "Thank you, body, for clearing these things out so that I don't have to suffer through them." And in that gratitude, it's almost like we're sending the energy of healing to already be the present experience in the body. So let's take one more breath through this side. Exhale, gradually return out of this direction. And whichever variation you did on the first side, take that same type of twist to the second direction. Easing your way into it, there's no rush. If you use the prop on the first side, maybe bring it right back over to this direction. And again, express gratitude for your body for already cleansing all of that stuff out. Thank you. And somehow in already being thankful for it, it tends to work such that the body says, oh, okay, I understand. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it just does it for us. It's a very special way of activating our subconscious to work in our favor. And a special way of activating that law of attraction. So one last breath in and out. Then we're going to work our way of hips down to the ground. Once we're even with the spine back onto the ground, begin to ask your body, are there any last poses or simple stretches I can give you prior to Savasana? If there's any last things, give yourself time to do those. Maybe it's a little shoulder stretch to each side. Maybe your neck wants a simple movement, just stretching a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right. So take as much time as you need to do that. And then the second question would be, when you get comfortable in your body, we ask our body, what type of Shavasana would you like today to support my immune system? And maybe that's returning to legs up the wall once more. Maybe it's bringing your bolster right underneath the knees to be comfortably lifted. Or maybe there's another variation that you'd like to play with today. You have my complete permission to explore any of those things that might just feel great for your body. It's that intuitive knowing, your intuition telling you, yes, for some reason, this pose feeds the type of energy that you need right now. So we comply gratefully. Thank you for giving me that information. That's what I'd like to do today. So take all the time you need. If you're still stretching, even there's no rush. At some point, you'll feel ready to relax into Shavasana. So when you get there, just let the breath take over. Huge inhales and exhales. Imagining that every single breath supports our immune system, helps us to stay healthy. So inhale, I breathe in health. Exhale, I release everything that's preventing my health. I release stress. Inhale, health. Exhale, toxins. And continuing in that way, just breathing or naming each part of the breath like an affirmation. Here we'll begin to deepen our inhales and exhales. Introduce little movements back to fingers and toes, ankles and wrists. Stretching out like we're waking up first thing in the morning. Eventually relaxing into a nice fetal position off to one side. There's no rush. Maybe you're taking another full 4 or 5 breaths until you feel ready to come up to a comfortable seated place at some point, sooner or later. So as we're up, let's join our hands together in front of the heart. And as we're heading into the rest of this day and the next several days, this idea of greater immunity will absolutely help us to stay healthy, to stay strong. We're releasing the things that prevent our immunity. We're releasing stress and tension. And we're breathing in and inviting in the things that make us healthy, movement into the body, healthier foods in our diet. And so with this idea of doing everything we can to support a very healthy immune system and a healthy body, with this to lead us on, let's wrap up the time we got to share together today with the sound of Om. Taking a deep inhale now. May we be filled with light and happiness and peace. Namaste.